Skip, how will this play out?
Before you go, Skip, we're not paying anything for that little music that was playing in the background. So don't be calling up here at FS1 think you're going to get some residuals, because you're not.
You want to know the truth?
Yeah.
The times they aren't a-changing, right? That's the truth from what he played. You know what? Tony Romo is becoming my recurring worst nightmare, my Freddy Krueger, because he will not go away, because Jerry won't let him go away. I fear I'm stuck with Tony Romo on the Cowboy roster for a while, maybe even a long while, maybe even into training camp. And I must, before I answer the rest of this question, give our own Eric Mangini here on Undisputed some credit for this, because he has advocated from the start. There is no way Jerry Jones is just going to give away a Tony Romo that he paid all that money to back in 2013, that he's paid all that money to for playing 5 games over the last 2 years. And Eric was correct about this, because remember, just the other day, Eric advocated that Jerry should keep Tony at least into the preseason, because what if somebody else's starter gets hurt? What if somebody else really gets desperate for a Tony Romo to the point that they will give a higher draft pick or maybe even a player for Tony Romo? So now it appears that Jerry Jones has gotten his back up, has gotten his bigger than Texas pride and ego back up.
He got his big hat on
Yeah,
now,
he's got his big hat on. He's going to try to big time the rest of the NFL, because he wants something in return for Tony Romo. And I'm going to remind everybody of this, especially Cowboy Nation. Jerry Jones is now under no deadline to remove Tony Romo from his roster. Tony Romo's under contract with the Dallas Cowboys for 2 more years. There's no urgency. There's no time constraint here, right?
Nope.
You can keep him as long as you want. And I also want to point this out. One news cycle ago, if we go back to Wednesday afternoon when the story broke, Tony Romo will be released by the Dallas Cowboys. I'm pretty sure, I'm not dead sure, but I'm pretty sure that came from Tony's camp. That came from his agent, his advisor, maybe even from Tony himself. I'm pretty sure that didn't come straight from the horse's mouth where the buck stops, right. Jerry Jones. So everybody leaped to the conclusion, oh, Tony's going to be released. And there was only one deadline that really mattered as that clock started ticking, and that was 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon. Because if, in fact, Jerry Jones had been able to cut the cord with Tony Romo Jones and free him to go out onto the market under the do-right rule, where he wouldn't go to maybe Washington, but he would go to Denver or Houston, that meant that the clock was ticking toward 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon, the deadline, because if Tony had been cut loose, Dallas would have immediately freed up $5 million to spend now in this free agency period. Once you pass that deadline, there's nothing really left. You could designate him for a June 1st cut, which would free up $14 million from that point forward past free agency. Right. But there's really no real urgency to do that either. So Jerry Jones said, not so fast. And now it's going to go very slowly, because Brock Osweiler did happen. And I must congratulate the Houston Texans. They found a way out from under Brock Osweiler. And I thought that was a pretty sweet move by them, even though it was controversial. I'm not sure it's going to pass muster.
Looked like a basketball move, huh?
It was an NBA move. It happens all the time in the NBA. But they did effectively trade Brock Osweiler.
Yes.
So it wasn't just straight up cash for second-round pick in 2018, right? There is a trade involved, so I think it will pass muster. Right. So now that Brock Osweiler has gone from Houston, Jerry's sitting back saying, aha, I got you, because you have clearly cleared the decks for Tony Romo. You've got Tom Savage on your roster. You still got Brandon Weeden, and they do like, I think Bill O'Brien likes Tom Savage. Yes. So would he want to try to go forward in training camp with him? I don't know, maybe, if they're going to play chicken. That's what just happened. Mm-hmm. The game of chicken just started between Jerry and Bob McNair, the owner of the Texans. Mm-hmm. Who will blink first? And there's no reason for Jerry to blink anytime soon. So I believe in the end, this is just my gut feeling, my distant guess here, I say that Tony will wind up with the Houston Texans, but it may not be until midway through training camp, after a couple of preseason games, when somebody gets desperate enough to do this deal. And I believe Jerry could hold out. I don't know, he might get a 4th rounder. He might get a 3rd rounder. He might get a player on their defense that they might deem barely expendable so that Jerry could add some player to his defense. I don't even know who it is. I tried to look through their depth chart. I don't know. I'm just be guessing.
Right.
But they are pretty loaded on defense. So maybe it's a player, maybe it's a pick. But I think Jerry he's actually doing the right thing now for Cowboy Nation, I must admit. But it's going to drive me a little crazy because it's only going to increase the chances that Jerry will sit back and say, you know, I just love me some Tony Romo. And maybe if he sees him early in camp, he'll say, he might be better than that kid. He just might be better.
He making them Aaron Rodgers plays again in practice.
Yeah.
Skip, this is what we know. I believe 100% in my heart of hearts that he will not be on the Dallas Cowboys roster.
Okay.
Now, what has happened is that Jerry knows the Houston Texans and the Denver Broncos want Tony Romo. He also knows Tony Romo wants them.
Yep.
So he realized that the market is increasing because he's getting whispers that the Broncos are trying to move Trevor Siemian. He saw what the Texans did with Brock Osweiler and moved him to Cleveland.
Okay.
So he's like you said, aha, right now, Skip, you remember when you were young, Joy, you remember this, playing the blinking game.
She's
stare game.
Young. Wait, she is. You remember when you're young.
Come
on.
Thanks, Skip.
Yeah.
The stare game, the first one blinks, you lose.
Yeah.
So that's what
that's it. I agree.
Jerry's in a blinking in a staring contest with the Houston Texans and the Denver Broncos.
And Jerry loves staring contests.
Yes,
he does.
But here's the thing. Now, I can't speak to Bill O'Brien. I do know Rick Smith very well, the general manager for the Texans. But I know John Elway very, very well.
Yes, you do.
John Elway model is kind of like what the Patriots do. You can play for us, but at my price. And John's price is free agency. I'm not going to give up anything, Jerry. I'm not, because I know you're going to get rid of him. So you keep him on your books for that $19 million, that 24.7, and let all these free agents pass through because you got no cap space to go get him. Now, maybe the Houston Texans, maybe the owner, Bob McNair, tells Bill O'Brien and Rick, look, anything, if he wants a fifth or a sixth or seventh round draft pick, and that's what it's going to take, because for right now, it's Super Bowl or bust for these guys. I mean, you got J.J. Watt in his prime, you got Jadeveon Clowney, you got Wynton Merciless. You loaded on that side of the ball. Plus, you got an offense, DeAndre Hopkins and Braxton Miller and William Fuller V.
You do.
Lamar Miller. So they're saying, hold on, we played with basically an incompetent quarterback in the divisional round. If we had anybody competent, there's a good chance we could have beaten New England.